Hello, this is Sour D, reporting live from the middle of Iowa. We are back on the road again. Back on the road again. And boy, I cannot wait to share with y'all the things that I have learned on this journey. The information that I'm going to be relaying to all of you back home is imperative. Completely imperative to the well-being of every person, of every human being in this country. If you even want to call it a country anymore. Because in all actuality, by law, it's a corporation. It was incorporated in 1933 when the U.S. literally went bankrupt, officially bankrupt. 1933, look it up. After 1934, there was not 1 ounce of gold left in any stock, any vault in America. And so from that point on, the Federal Reserve came to be. Now, what happened was after U.S. went bankrupt, they called for private loans from private banks in England. You know, remember Revolutionary War, so-called independence from Great Britain? Well, guess what? You're back right where we started, because unfortunately Great Britain owns this place. It was bought out. Congress sold us out behind our backs. I'm sorry. I hate to be the one to tell you, but I had to because no one cares anymore. So, when the Federal Reserve came to be, formed from the private banks, you know, the big banksters, the big elite who are part of the royal families of the earth, who have run things on this planet for, what, over 2,000 years? It's a long time that these royal bloodlines have been in power, for literally ages. And their goal is to continue throughout the ages to be in power. Continue to enslave us mentally, physically, financially, any way possible. To use us for their benefit, to continue their rule. So, when these private loans came from these private banks, the Federal Reserve, from England to the U.S., called promissory notes. It's a promise. It's a promise. It's an IOU type thing. A promissory note. That's what Federal Reserve notes are. They're a promise to pay back the debt, whatever that debt might be. So what the banks, the big banksters did was they committed fraud by sending thousands and thousands of dollars, pumping them into the U.S. economy with an interest rate attached to them. So it's an immediate debt. The dollar, right off the bat, has immediate debt attached to it. So every time more money is issued without any backing whatsoever, it's creating more and more debt. So let me ask you this. If money is what's going to pay our debts, and money doesn't have any value anymore, where's the money going to come from to pay the debts? Right? Where's the money going to come from? It has no value. It's debt. It literally means debt. Look at your debit card. Debt it. Get it? Debt it. More debt. Invisible money. Electronic. It's not even paper anymore. It's invisible. It's a number on a computer screen. It doesn't exist.
If everybody were to go to the bank today at the same time, or even just within the same week, and try to take out all their money, there wouldn't be...
The banks wouldn't even have enough.
They'd close down.
The entire system would collapse. So knowing all this, what kind of thoughts start to come into your head about society, about where life is going? So that's the meaning of this entire journey that we've embarked upon, to learn the truth about why and how we've been enslaved. And if you don't think you're a slave, if you think that this illusion of freedom is actually what being free really feels like, I really don't know what to tell you. I really don't know. How about this? Where are you going? Where are you going tomorrow morning? Don't you have bills to pay? Don't you have taxes to pay for Medicare that probably half the people that paid the taxes don't even get to have? Paying taxes to send to the elite bankers so they can pour more millions of dollars into their military industrial complex, creating war machines that are taking down entire countries. Listen to me. The Middle East has been decimated by war for over 20 years. For decades. It's been decimated by a never-ending war. The war will never end because the debt can never be paid. The only way you can pay the debt is by destroying the creditor. You are all that's left that has any value. The money is meaningless. The bills are all meaningless because they can't be paid because the money doesn't mean anything. The only thing left is you. That's it. The land's already been repossessed. The Fed owns it now. Federal law is completely separate. It's a complete separate entity than state laws. The Federal Reserve is a foreign organization that's infiltrated the United States and turned it into a corporation. By law, in Black's Law Dictionary, every corporation must have all of its letters spelt out in all capital letters. That's why if you look at Walmart, McDonald's, Subway, it's all capital letters because it's a corporation. By law, it has to be all caps. Now, if you'll notice something, take a look at your driver's license, your ID, or your birth certificate.
Your insurance card.
Your insurance
Social
card.
Security card.
Notice how your name is in all capital letters. Because a dummy corporation, a fictional entity, has been created in your name to tax you.
Can I break in?
1 second. There's two separate types of laws that are mostly recognized here in the US in the corporation. Now, there's common law, which is the law of the land, and then there's admiralty law, which is the law of the sea, and it pertains to shipping goods and commerce. Whenever a ship comes into a port, it docks at the dock, and then a birth certificate, a receipt of live birth is what it's actually called.
No. There's a birth certificate and then there's a living birth record.
No, I'm talking about the birth certificate, the receipt of
yeah, sorry.
the receipt. It's a receipt. It's a warehouse receipt. That's all it is. It describes the cargo, how much it weighs, where it's coming from, where it's going, the ID number on the cargo. Sound a little familiar? You look on your ID, what do you see? Height, weight, eye color, hair color, skin color, ID number, social security number. So, admiralty law, by a simple twisting of words known as word magic, has tricked everyone into thinking that they fall under corporate statutes that only apply to shipping goods, commerce, and business between corporations. So the only way to identify your true self out of this whole fraud that's been committed against every single person is to notice that your real name, who you actually are, the name that people refer to you as, the name that your mother gave you when you were born, is in capital first letter and the rest lowercase. The corporation, the dummy fictional entity that they made in your name to do business and commerce and to tax and to prosecute under admiralty law, is in all capital letters. So somehow we've all been tricked into thinking that admiralty law applies to us when it doesn't, because we're natural human beings. We're flesh and blood and bone. We're not a corporation. I'm not doing business with you by talking to you. So what is that supposed to mean? By me having a conversation with you, I'm transferring goods as a corporate entity? No, I'm a natural human being. In Black's Law Dictionary, look this up. Black's Law Dictionary, definition of person has been changed to a corporate entity, a fictional corporation.
You can bring it up right now.
I can bring it up right here
We can show you
on my screen,
promissory note, everything.
right here.
No, what I was trying to say before is, where does this all start when you're being born? There's some.
So so when you're driving, the definition of driving is transportation of goods and commodities under corporate statutes. So when you agree, like think of it this way, the only way that you can be susceptible to admiralty law is by agreeing into it through a contract, a binding agreement. You have to sign yourself into it. So when you go out and a baby is born, okay, so the baby's born, they tell you a birth certificate has to be made. Now, a certificate, by definition in Black's Law Dictionary, is an ownership claim. In a paper establishing, a document establishing an ownership claim. So, by law, when a birth certificate is made, it is an ownership claim of abandoned cargo. So, so owned by whom, you might ask? Well, I explained that earlier. The world banks. The banks who issued the promissory notes with no backing. They issued more notes than they could ever back. That's what inflation is. That's where inflation came from. The inpouring of money into the system that doesn't even mean anything. It has no value. So, 1933, the Federal Reserve Act comes into play, and the District of Columbia became part of the entire scheme. Have you ever heard of the District of Columbia? It's a 20-mile radius in Washington, D.C. called the United States, all capital letters. It's a corporation. Now, when United States falls on our ears, we think, oh, the landmass. It's not the landmass. They're talking about United States, the fictional character, the fictional corporation, the corporate entity in which business is done under. So, by signing into all the contracts and the agreements, when your mother signs your birth certificate, she on the birth certificate, if you look at it, your mother is called, not your mom, not your mother, informant. She is a government informant. She is informing the proper government agency that there's a new ownership claim to be made. There's new cargo to be claimed. Now, like I said about the whole word magic thing, it's all to twist your mind. It's to take one word and what normally you would think the definition is, and to completely switch it around in a way that you wouldn't even think. Like, you hear one sentence, but it means something completely different than what you think it means. So, your mother informs the government, the government agency, the banks, the private banks, that a new ownership claim is being made, that there's a cargo that's been abandoned. In admiralty law, it's known as dead at sea, abandoned at sea. When you're born and a birth certificate is made, a warehouse receipt is made for you, what happens is the hospital puts out into the paper, or the banks. I can't remember exactly which one, but when you're born, your name gets put out into the newspaper. And you might think, that's just a nice thing to do. A new baby's born into the world. We're announcing a new life, a new human being emerging on Earth. That's not even what it is at all. What it is it's putting out a claim. It's saying, hey, this cargo has been abandoned at our facility. And whoever owns it or whoever it came from, has 90 days to claim that cargo, to claim that ownership.